Nathaniel Osei-Bonsu was the kind of man who had built everything from nothing and lost something more important in the process: the ability to believe that people were worth trusting. He was 53 years old. He sat at the head of a dining table that seated 12 in a house on the edge of Rosedale, Toronto, where the streets were quiet enough that you could hear the wind move through the oak trees at night. The house had 4 bedrooms, a kitchen with heated floors, a backyard that a landscaper maintained every 2 weeks whether Nathaniel was home or not, and a silence so complete and so heavy that sometimes he would leave the television on in the next room just to feel like someone else was in the building. To the world, Nathaniel Osei-Bonsu was the definition of a man who had made it. He had grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Rexdale, northwest Toronto, in a building where the parking lot flooded every spring and the super never fixed it, and where the neighbors knew each other's business because the walls were thin and people argued at night, and the building held sound the way old buildings always do. His mother, Abena, had come from Ghana at 27 with a nursing certificate that Ontario would not recognize without retraining she could not afford. So she cleaned office buildings downtown, Monday through Friday, the overnight shift, leaving the apartment at 9 in the evening and returning at 6 in the morning. Sleeping for 4 hours before Nathaniel's school day started, waking to make him breakfast without being asked, without complaint, without ever once suggesting that this was not the life she had imagined. His father had been in the picture until Nathaniel was 9. Then he was not. There was no dramatic exit, no final argument Nathaniel could point to later and say that was the moment. His father simply became less present, then absent, then gone, the way a sound fades when you stop listening for it. His mother never said anything bad about the man. She just kept working. Nathaniel watched her. That was what he did as a child. He watched. He watched the way she ironed her uniform at the kitchen counter before every shift because they did not own an ironing board. He watched the way she stretched a pot of soup across 4 days by adding water and a little more pepper each time. He watched the way she smiled at him in the mornings, like waking up to see his face was the reward for everything the night had cost her. He started helping where he could. At 14, he was shoveling driveways in January before school, $5 a driveway. Sometimes $7 if the snow had come overnight and the homeowner was running late. At 17, he was doing basic bookkeeping for a Jamaican restaurant on Finch that the owner ran out of a spiral notebook. He had taught himself spreadsheets on a computer at the public library. The owner paid him in jerk chicken and $40 a week, and Nathaniel saved every bill. At 22, he got a job in accounts receivable at a logistics company downtown. By 28, he had his CPA designation. By 35, he had started his own financial advisory firm in a rented office in North York with 2 employees and a printer that jammed twice a day. By 45, that firm had 42 employees and 3 offices and clients whose assets ran into the hundreds of millions. He had done all of it, every step, every late night. Every gamble taken with clear eyes and a calm hand. And now he sat at the head of that table in that quiet house and ate dinner alone. Most evenings, the way successful men sometimes do when they have spent so long building something, that they forgot to build anything else alongside it. The reason for the wall had 2 names. The first was his business partner of 11 years, a man named Vincent Crawford, who had been Nathaniel's closest friend since their early days at the accounting firm. The man who had celebrated with him when the advisory business took off, who had stood beside him at every milestone. Vincent had been managing a separate client portfolio for the firm's most private accounts. When the auditors found the discrepancy 2 years ago, it was not small. It was $4.7 million moved through accounts that did not officially exist over a period of 6 years. Nathaniel sat in his office the evening the report landed on his desk and did not move for 2 hours. Not because of the money, because of the years. Because of what you feel when someone you trusted with the most fragile parts of your professional life has been quietly taking from you the entire time. He did not press criminal charges publicly. He settled, he let Vincent go. And then he rebuilt the firm's finances with the same quiet determination he had used to build everything else, because that was what he knew how to do. The second name was his ex-wife, Patricia. They had been married for 10 years. She was warm, precise, funny in a dry way that made Nathaniel feel understood in rooms where he usually felt observed. He had loved her with the careful and complete love of a man who does not give that word away easily. He had told her things he had told no one. About his father leaving, about the driveways in January, about the way his mother's hands looked at the end of a shift, chapped and red along the knuckles, and how he had promised himself as a boy that those hands would someday rest. Patricia had known everything. What Nathaniel learned after the divorce was that she had shared some of it. Selectively, strategically, with her family, who had been using his firm's internal scheduling information passed through Patricia to time investment decisions in a competing fund. Nothing that would hold up in court, nothing clean enough to prosecute. But real, methodical, sustained over 3 years. He had not been robbed of money this time. He had been robbed of the careful trust he had placed in a person, and that was a harder thing to replace. After that, Nathaniel Osei-Bonsu smiled at events and shook hands at conferences and showed up where he needed to show up. But something behind the performance had gone still. He was present in rooms the way a man can be present without actually being there. Responsive, appropriate, professional, and fundamentally somewhere else. His assistant, a young man named Jamie, was the only person who saw it clearly. Because Jamie was there every day and paid attention, in the way that quietly observant people do. He never said anything about it. It was not his place, and Nathaniel never asked him to. The idea came to Nathaniel on a Wednesday evening in early October. He had been leaving a fundraiser dinner at the Four Seasons on Bay Street. One of those events where the food was good and the conversation was careful, and everyone in the room wanted something from everyone else. And Nathaniel had written his check and made his rounds, and now he was done. He was waiting for his car outside the hotel when he saw it. A woman in a red coat was walking along the sidewalk with her phone out, reading something, not paying attention to much else. As she passed a newspaper box near the curb, her bag slipped off her shoulder, and something fell from the side pocket. A small brown wallet. It landed on the wet pavement and skidded slightly. She kept walking. A man in a delivery jacket passed it, looked down, kept moving. A teenager with a backpack and earbuds stepped over it without stopping. Then a girl appeared. She was maybe 12, 13, wearing a school uniform that was a half size too small and carrying a cloth grocery bag with a baguette sticking out of the top. She saw the wallet. She stopped. She picked it up. She looked inside it briefly, then looked around the street, scanning. Then she ran. Not away. After the woman in the red coat. She caught up to her half a block later. The woman turned. The girl held out the wallet. The woman took it, looked at the girl for exactly 1 second, then turned away and resumed walking, already back on her phone. The girl stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Then she turned around, adjusted the grocery bag on her arm, and walked back the way she had come, the baguette bouncing with each step. Nathaniel watched all of it from the awning of the hotel. His car pulled up. He got in. He sat there for the entire drive home, not listening to anything, looking at the city through the window. The lights on Bay Street thinning out as they moved north, the neighborhoods changing, the houses getting closer together, the corner stores staying open late. That girl had nothing to gain. She did not know the woman. She had not waited to see if a reward was coming. She simply saw something that was not hers and returned it, because that was the right thing to do. And she had been thanked with a 1-second glance. Nathaniel sat in his study that evening, with a glass of water he did not touch, and thought about it until past midnight. By morning, he had a plan. He would do it on a Saturday in the Annex neighborhood near the stretch of shops on Bloor Street, where all kinds of people moved through on a weekend morning. He would use his wallet. His real one, a flat leather card case he had carried for 8 years, worn smooth at the corners. Inside he would put $500 in cash, 2 credit cards, and one other thing. A photograph. Wallet-sized, printed on matte paper, the edges soft from years of handling. It showed a woman in a blue nursing uniform, standing in front of a building with a red brick exterior and a parking lot that flooded every spring. She was not smiling for the camera. She was looking slightly off to the left at something out of frame, the way people look when they do not know a photograph is being taken. She looked tired in the way that has nothing to do with sleep and everything to do with years. That woman was Nathaniel Osei-Bonsu, and that photograph was the only thing in the wallet that could not be replaced. He chose a cold morning in mid-October, the kind of Toronto October day where the sky is bright and the air has a clean edge to it, and people walk a little faster than they do in summer. He dressed plainly, dark wool jacket, dark jeans, no watch. He asked Jamie to walk 30 meters behind him with a phone, recording, saying nothing. He walked along Bloor Street with the wallet in his hand, and at the right moment he let it fall. The first person was a man named, from his appearance and the tailored coat, clearly someone with money. Late 40s, moving with the particular confidence of a person who never runs late because the world adjusts its timing to him. The wallet landed directly in his path. He saw it. He paused. Then he moved around it deliberately, like something he did not want to be involved in. Nathaniel picked up the wallet, walked a block, dropped it again. The second person was a woman named, from the daycare lanyard around her neck and the 2 reusable bags she was carrying, almost certainly a mother of young children, somewhere in her 30s. She was moving quickly, head down against the wind. She saw the wallet, stopped, picked it up. She opened it. She found the cash. Nathaniel watched from across the street as she looked left, looked right, then tucked the wallet under one of the grocery bags and kept walking. He did not blame her. He understood the math of a tight week. He understood what $500 looks like when the rent is due, and the daycare bill just went up again. He was not angry. He had expected this. He had expected all of it. He was tired of being right. He walked 2 more blocks, turned onto a quieter side street near a hardware store with hand-lettered sale signs in the window, and dropped the wallet one final time. And that was when he saw the third person. Her name was Celeste Adjua Mireku. She was 44 years old, and she walked the way people walk when their feet hurt, and they have been ignoring it for long enough that the ignoring has become part of the walk. She had a canvas tote over one shoulder, the kind that has been washed so many times the print has gone blurry, and she was holding the hand of a boy who was 6 or 7 and had strong opinions about every crack in the sidewalk. She wore a coat that was clean and pressed but visibly old. The lining of the left sleeve had separated at the cuff, and she had stitched it back with dark thread that did not quite match the fabric. The stitching was neat, though. Careful. The work of someone who took care of things even when the things were past their best. The wallet landed near a lamppost about 3 feet ahead of her. The boy spotted it first. "Mom, look." Celeste stopped. She looked down. She crouched slowly and picked it up, holding it with both hands. She opened it. The first thing she saw was the money. 500s, fanned slightly. She went still for a moment, completely still in the way that a person goes still when they encounter a number that means something serious to their life. Then she looked at her son, who was watching a pigeon on a telephone wire and had already moved on to other concerns. Then she looked at the money again. She moved past it, past the cards. Her fingers found the photograph in the inside pocket, and she drew it out carefully. A woman in a blue nursing uniform standing in front of a brick building, looking off to the left, not knowing she was being captured. Tired in a way that was written all the way into her posture, her shoulders, the set of her jaw. Celeste looked at the photograph for a long time. She was quiet in the way that people are quiet when something has reached past the surface and found something older and more tender underneath. Then she closed the wallet. She stood up. She took her son's hand. "We're going to find who lost this," she told him. He looked at her with the complete confidence of a child who has never had reason to question his mother's decisions. "Okay," he said, and went back to watching the pigeon. She did not know that the man who had dropped the wallet was standing 40 meters behind her. She did not know about the phone recording everything. She did not know she was being tested. She only knew what she always knew, which was the same thing her grandmother had told her in Accra 35 years ago. Repeated in the kitchen of a small house with a metal roof that pinged when it rained. What is not yours does not belong in your hands, no matter how much you need it. Celeste stopped a man walking a dog. He shook his head. She tried a woman unlocking a bicycle. No. She went into the hardware store and spoke to the person at the cash register, who called the owner from the back, who also had no idea about any lost wallet. Her son, whose name was Kofi, climbed onto a wooden bench outside the hardware store and began bouncing quietly, watching the street with the alert seriousness of a child assigned a mission. Celeste sat beside him. She opened the wallet again and looked at the photograph once more. The nursing uniform, the brick building, the posture of someone who has been working since before most people wake up. She thought about her own mother who had worked a hospital laundry in Scarborough for 19 years. She did not know the man who had taken that photograph was 20 meters away, watching her face. Nathaniel walked toward her. She saw him coming and stood, and before he reached her, she was already holding the wallet out with one hand and holding Kofi's with the other. "Is this yours?" she asked. He looked at the wallet, then at her. Then, without intending to, he looked at her coat, at the sleeve, at the careful mismatched stitching at the cuff. "Yes," he said, "it is." She placed it in his hand. She smiled, not wide, just the small, warm smile of someone who has done what they were supposed to do and is not waiting for anything in return. "There's a photograph inside," she said. It looked like it mattered. She adjusted Kofi's hand in hers, said a polite goodbye, and turned to walk away. Nathaniel stood on the sidewalk and watched her go. He opened the wallet. The money was there, every bill, the cards untouched, and the photograph of his mother still in the inside pocket, still exactly as he had placed it. She had needed that money, he knew it. He had seen the coat. He had seen the tote bag worn thin. He had seen the careful stitching at the cuff that said more about a person than any resume ever could, and she had given it back. Nathaniel stood on the sidewalk in the October cold and felt something shift in his chest. Not dramatically, not with the weight of revelation, but the way ice shifts on a lake in early March when the temperature has moved 2 degrees and you would not notice unless you were paying attention. He drove home in silence, ate nothing, sat in his study with the wallet on the desk and the photograph out, and looked at his mother's face in a way he had not looked at it in years. She had come to this country with a credential that meant nothing here, and had made herself mean something anyway. One overnight shift at a time. She had never taken a thing that was not hers. Not a bar of soap from the offices she cleaned. Not a single item from the lost and found. Not so much as an extra 30 minutes on a break that was already too short. He looked at the photograph. He saw Celeste Miracu. He called Jamie that night. "Find out who she is. Everything you can from the footage and public records." Jamie did not ask questions. He was good at that. By Monday morning, a file was on Nathaniel's desk. Celeste Adjoa Miracu, age 44, born in Accra, came to Canada at 19 with a student visa, studied early childhood education at Seneca College, graduated with honors, worked at a licensed daycare in Scarborough for 11 years. The daycare had closed 14 months ago when the building was sold for a condo development. She had been working since then at a school in North York as an educational assistant, contract position, not permanent. Annual income just over $34,000. Single mother. One son, Kofi, age 7. No family in Toronto. A sister in Calgary. A mother who still lived in Accra and whom Celeste sent money to every month, a small amount never missed. Rent, behind by 6 weeks. No savings account with a positive balance. Nathaniel read the file slowly. Then he set it face down on the desk and pressed both palms flat on the surface and looked at the wall. He thought about a woman who sent money home every month when she barely had enough herself. He thought about the stitched sleeve. He thought about a boy on a bench watching the street for the wallet's owner, like it was his personal responsibility. He thought about the things he had told himself for 2 years. That people could not be trusted. that generosity was a kind of naivety, that the wall he had built was not a wall at all but just good sense. He thought about how comfortable it is to be right about the worst things. How the story of betrayal is easy to maintain if you never let any evidence to the contrary get close enough to challenge it. Celeste Miracle had held $500 in her hands and given it back. She had owed him nothing. She did not know him. She was 6 weeks behind on her rent, and she had given it back. He sat with that for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and called Jamie and told him to find out which elementary school Kofi attended. He also called his accountant, and then he called his lawyer. He did not call Celeste directly. He did not show up at her door. He knew what it felt like to have a stranger appear with information about your life that you had not given them, and it did not feel like help. It felt like surveillance. Instead, he asked a coordinator he trusted at a nonprofit housing organization on Kingston Road to reach out on behalf of an anonymous donor who wanted to cover 6 months of rent arrears for a specific family, no conditions, no follow-up required. The coordinator called him back the next afternoon. She accepted it, the coordinator said, carefully. She asked twice if there were any strings attached. Of course she did, Nathaniel said. A week later, on a Thursday afternoon, he asked Jamie to reach out to Celeste Miracle directly with his name and office number and ask if she would be willing to meet him. Jamie did, and reported back that there had been a long pause on the other end of the line before she said she would think about it. She called back the following morning. She would meet him. But she wanted to choose the location. He said, of course. She named a coffee shop on Danforth Avenue, public, busy, the kind of place where a woman meeting a stranger could see the exit clearly. He respected that immediately. He arrived first and ordered a tea he did not drink. She arrived 4 minutes later with Kofi, who had apparently not been manageable on short notice with a sitter, and she walked into the coffee shop with the particular alertness of a woman who has learned to read rooms quickly. She found Nathaniel at a corner table, looked at him for a moment, the way you look at someone you recognize but cannot immediately place, and then recognition arrived. "You're the man with the wallet," she said. "I am," he said. She sat down across from him. Kofi climbed into the chair beside her and immediately arranged the sugar packets into a grid, which Nathaniel pretended not to find interesting. Celeste looked at him steadily. She did not fidget. She did not fill the silence. "I need to tell you something," he said. "I didn't lose that wallet by accident." The expression on her face did not collapse. It changed, a small, precise adjustment, the way a door moves when someone has pressed against it without opening it yet. She set down the cup she had just been given. She waited. He told her everything. The girl in the red coat district, the idea at midnight, the wallet, the cash, the photograph. The first man who stepped around it, the woman with the daycare lanyard who took the money, himself standing 40 meters away, watching through Jamie's phone while she held $500 and looked at a photograph of a tired woman in a nursing uniform. When he finished, the coffee shop was loud around them in the cheerful, indifferent way of busy places. Celeste was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You tested strangers." Her voice was level, not cold, not warm. "Level, I did," he said. "I didn't return that wallet to pass a test," she said. She looked at him directly. "I returned it because it wasn't mine to keep." The sentence was simple. It sat in the air between them like something that had been placed there carefully and did not need to be moved. Nathaniel said nothing for a moment. Then, "You're right, and I'm sorry, Celts." Set looked at him. She studied his face the way someone looks at a document they are deciding whether to sign. Not with distrust, exactly, but with the care of a person who has made that mistake before and is taking their time. "Why did you really come here?" she said. "Because I needed to be honest with someone," he said, "and it seemed like you would know the difference." Something in her expression shifted. Not open, but less closed. The door not unlatched, but the pressure behind it released slightly. "The housing help," she said. "That was you." He did not answer, which was its own answer. She looked at Kofi, who had run out of sugar packets and moved on to folding a napkin into something architectural. Then she looked back at Nathaniel. "I can't be paid for doing what's right," she said. "No," he said. "That's not what I'm offering." He slid an envelope across the table. She picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a job description. 3 paragraphs. He had written it himself. He was establishing a small foundation. Its purpose was to fund wraparound supports for newcomer families in Toronto. Early childhood workers, settlement workers, family navigators. People who understood from the inside what it took to arrive in a country that did not immediately recognize what you brought with you. He needed someone to help him build the program, not an executive. A person who understood the work from the ground level. Someone who would sit in the actual rooms with the actual families and know what was needed before anyone had to explain it. The position came with a real salary, benefits, hours that worked around a school schedule. Celeste read the 3 paragraphs, read them again. Set the paper down on the table. She looked at Kofi. He had completed his napkin structure and was regarding it with quiet satisfaction. "Why me?" she said. It was not quite a question. "Because you held a wallet that could have fixed 6 weeks of your life," Nathaniel said, "and the only thing you looked at twice was the photograph." She pressed her lips together. She picked up the job description again and read the 3rd paragraph a second time. "I'd need to know more," she said, "about what the foundation actually does, about what the role actually is." "I know," he said, "and I'd need to bring Kofi to at least one more meeting until I have someone reliable to watch him." "That's fine." She looked at him for a long moment. "My grandmother used to say," she began, then stopped and started again. "She used to say that what is not yours does not belong in your hands, no matter how much you need it." She paused. "I've been saying it to him." She nodded toward Kofi. "He's 7. He doesn't entirely believe me yet." "He will," Nathaniel said. "She died last year," Celeste said. "My grandmother. In Accra. I couldn't get back for the funeral because the airfare was." She stopped. "I couldn't get back." Nathaniel did not look away. "I've been carrying her saying around ever since," Celeste said. "Like if I keep saying it, I'm keeping some piece of her here." She looked down at the table. "It sounds like something you say to a child. But it's not, really. It's the whole thing. It's everything she believed about how to be in the world." The coffee shop went on around them. The espresso machine. The door opening and closing with a small bell. Kofi, beside them, softly narrating something to himself in a voice too quiet to hear. Nathaniel looked at the envelope on the table between them. He thought about his own mother. About the overnight shifts. About the soup stretched across 4 days. About the way she had looked at him in the mornings. Not like a woman who was exhausted, but like a woman who had found a reason not to be. "My mother used to say something similar," he said. "She didn't say it in words, she just lived it, every shift, every year." "Is she still here?" Celeste asked. "She is," he said. "She's in Brampton. She's 71, and she still irons her clothes before she goes anywhere." Something moved across Celeste's face. A small warmth, the kind that arrives when a detail is specific enough to be true. "She sounds like my grandmother," she said. "I think they would have gotten along," he said. There was a pause. Not uncomfortable. The kind of pause that settles between 2 people who have said something real and are letting it stay. "Okay," Celeste said. She picked up the job description and folded it once and placed it in her tote bag beside what appeared to be a library book and a small orange. "I'll consider it properly, and I'll have questions." "I'd expect that," he said. Kofi looked up from his construction project. "Mom, can I get a cookie?" Celeste looked at Nathaniel, then at her son. Then she said, "Yes." And for the first time in the conversation, something in her face let go, just slightly, just at the edges, and Nathaniel saw what she looked like when she was not being careful. She looked like a person who laughed easily when the occasion finally allowed it. He waved over the person behind the counter. The foundation took 8 months to properly establish. During that time, Nathaniel drove his old Civic, a 2004 model with a crack in the dashboard he had never repaired, across different parts of Toronto and listened. He went to settlement services in Scarborough. He went to newcomer resource centers in Etobicoke. He sat in waiting rooms with bad lighting and read the pamphlets on the walls and thought about what it meant to arrive somewhere carrying everything you were and have none of it immediately count. He stopped taking calls during Sunday mornings and drove to Brampton instead. He sat at his mother's kitchen table and drank the tea she made in the same mismatched cups she had owned since he was 12, and he told her about the wallet and the girl on the bench and the coffee shop on Danforth. His mother listened without interrupting, which was her way, and when he finished she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "That woman sounds like she knows who she is." "She does," he said. "That's the rarest thing," his mother said. "Not talent, not drive, knowing who you are when things are hard." She poured more tea. The kitchen was warm. Through the window, the October trees were bare against a white sky. He looked at her hands around the mug. They were still chapped at the knuckles. Some things remain regardless of what changes around them. "I'm sorry I stopped coming on Sundays," he said. She waved one hand as if dismissing something that had never been a problem. But she did not say it was fine. She just poured more tea, which meant more than words would have. Celeste joined the foundation in the new year. She started not in an office but in the field, the way she insisted, going door to door in Scarborough and North Etobicoke and parts of Mississauga that the settlement maps did not always cover, sitting at kitchen tables with women who offered tea in mismatched cups and apologized for the state of apartments that were, to her eyes, meticulous. The particular meticulous of people who take great care of what little they have. She was good at it in the way that cannot be taught. She knew what "we're managing" meant when it was said by a woman who had not eaten a full meal since Tuesday. She knew how to stay long enough that the real conversation could start, after the polite one had been completed. She knew how to help without making the helped feel small. Kofi started a new school in January, one with a library that was open every lunch hour and a music program that had actual instruments. He brought home a recorder in February and played the same 4 notes for 3 weeks until he figured out the 5th. And Celeste sat at the kitchen table each evening and listened like it was a symphony. On a Saturday morning in late March, Nathaniel drove to Brampton and picked up his mother and brought her to a small building on Kingston Road that had been a community health center and was now, after several months of renovation, something new. It was not grand. 3 rooms, a bright front area with a children's corner, a meeting room with chairs in a circle, a small kitchen where coffee was always on. The walls were warm yellow. The windows had been enlarged. There was a garden bed in front that was still frozen, but had been prepared for spring planting. Above the door, a small engraved sign, "Abina's Place." Nathaniel had not told his mother about the name. She saw it as they pulled up and she sat in the passenger seat of the Civic for a moment without speaking. Her hands were in her lap. She was looking at the sign with the expression of a person who is deciding whether what they are seeing is real. "Nathaniel," she said. "Come see inside," he said. She got out of the car slowly. She walked to the door and stood in front of the sign and raised one hand and touched the letters the way you touch something you are not sure of yet. A woman came through the door before they reached it. Celeste, in a yellow jacket, Kofi behind her with a look of practiced nonchalance that meant he knew about this entirely. His mother looked at Celeste. Celeste looked at her. "You must be Abina," Celeste said. "I am," his mother said. "And you're the woman from the wallet story." Celeste laughed, the easy laugh, the one Nathaniel had seen only occasionally but had come to recognize as the real one. "He told you that version, did he?" "He tells me everything now," his mother said. "He started coming on Sundays again." She said it without looking at him, but he heard it. Inside, the morning light came through the new windows and fell across the floor in wide, warm panels. Kofi had already discovered the children's corner and was pulling books from the shelf with the systematic efficiency of a person who takes libraries seriously. Nathaniel stood near the door and watched his mother move through the 3 rooms of the building. She touched the counter in the kitchen. She looked at the chairs in the circle. She stood at the window in the meeting room and looked out at the garden bed, still bare, still waiting for spring. He did not need to say anything. Some things are better understood when they are simply allowed to exist. Celeste came to stand beside him. "She's going to cry," Celeste said quietly. "She doesn't cry," Nathaniel said. "She just gets very quiet." From the meeting room, his mother had gone very quiet. "Same thing," Celeste said. He almost argued. Then he didn't, because she was right. Outside, the March sky was the thin, bright blue of a day that has not yet decided to be warm. A bus went past on Kingston Road. Someone was raking a neighboring driveway, the sound of metal on wet asphalt. The ordinary sounds of a city morning going about its business without knowing that anything in particular was happening on this corner. But something was. Nathaniel Osei-Bonsu stood in a building named for his mother and looked at a woman who had returned his wallet on a cold October morning, without knowing what it would cost her or what it would begin. And he thought about all the things he had stopped believing in 2 years ago and quietly, without announcement, had started believing in again. Not because the world had given him a reason, because one person, on an ordinary Saturday morning, had shown him that the reason was already there. It had always been there. He had simply been standing too far back, behind a wall he had built so carefully that he had forgotten it was a wall at all, and not the whole of who he was. His mother came back from the meeting room. She walked to where he was standing, and she put her hand on his arm, and she said nothing. But her hand was firm and steady, the way a person holds something they refuse to let go. And that was enough.